We are alive.
We're live.
Yes.
Ugh.
Okay. Welcome everyone to the Rocket On Productions podcast. I don't know, what burping podcast now at this point.
Dude, come on. We're classier than that, Greer.
All right, really?
There's no need for you to burp like that
I swear.
on this podcast.
People can tell by the icons. Right? You're the red one.
You know
I'm the
that I
gray
can.
one.
No one's watching this, Greer. They're listening with their ears. I can't see who's talking.
That is true. If someone is watching this, I am sorry.
Yeah, seriously. Find a better hobby.
At some point, I need to get a good webcam so you can actually look at my dull face the whole time.
Yeah,
That's probably
I
works.
guess that. The good old webcam, that's the age we live
Yeah.
in. Yeah, dude. So we are here mostly to talk about Final Fantasy VII, and I guess whatever else we want to, because there are no rules.
Yeah, I mean, we can talk about literally whatever. Yeah, we were
Nowhere to
talking.
go,
Yeah,
nothing to do.
we were just talking about Resident Evil 3, the remake,
Yeah.
and
Oh, yeah. That's what we were talking about. Hey,
why?
let's fill everybody in on what we were talking about. So, we believe, as we were saying, because we forgot to press the record button.
Because I'm a genius.
Resident Evil 2 was great this year, and especially Jill, or not Jill.
Claire.
What's her name? Claire's character was really good because she's just a really great, strong female protagonist.
For
And
me,
she's pulling the whole
yeah,
aliens treatment with Ripley. She's got her
yeah,
new.
her personality feels more realistic in her arc, in that
Yeah,
she has a reason to protect somebody, and
right.
it's from a maternal, motherly instinct, and that makes her strong. And I always enjoy it when, like, yes, I know you have Papa Bear status, where a man will protect his children and stuff like that,
Yeah,
but I feel like from coming from a mom, when it happens from a mom, the act is
yeah,
much more
yeah, right.
desperate and powerful in that aspect.
Sure. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, so I feel like that, especially where she just squares up and run and then goes against
Well, right,
William
right, and
William Birkin. It's like
yeah,
that
and
dude
mechanically,
is.
it's just evocative, right? Like anybody's going to be able to empathize with it, even if you don't draw you don't necessarily even have to draw the motherly conclusion, but just the idea of the situation, of the context is going to have an emotional reaction because you're like, like you said yourself, aliens was the reference.
Yeah,
When Ripley finds Newt amid a swarm of what are they called?
xenomorphs.
Xenomorphs?
Yeah, xenomorphs.
Yeah, right. Like apex predators who just murk people through the brain with their double mouth. I don't know. It's just like it's a very compelling. Like it's not just that you want this protagonist to win. You desperately need them not to die this ferocious death that they've pinned up.
Yeah,
I don't
and
know. Anyway,
it's
but
like
so
I think what
sorry.
works with that too, and that story beat of all things, I beat the Claire storyline without Leon's, but in the Claire storyline, the emotional beats resonate with your own emotional beats. Like you have enough time with these characters
Mm,
to when you're finally hitting that elevator and going down to fight G by yourself, and you have a grenade launcher in your hand, you're like, okay, yeah, now it's time to throw down.
yeah.
You have enough emotional time to build that with her, and I feel like that does it really well. And I haven't played, full disclosure, I have not played the Resident Evil 3 remake, but I've heard it's, first of all, way too short,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. I heard that.
it's more flawed than Resident Evil 2 remake.
Is
And
it really?
yeah,
Did you hear that?
I heard the
Yeah, I didn't
complaints
know
were it has the Resident Evil 2 zombies, which are terrifying and bullet sponges,
that. Yeah.
but it makes massive hordes of them. So
Yeah. Right.
they're massive hordes that are difficult to kill, which is terrifying. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
However, they also make the gameplay more action oriented in that aspect. And then
Mm,
when you
yeah.
combine the two, it doesn't really mesh very well.
Yeah.
Also,
When I've
the game's 5 hours long.
Yeah, that's the biggest complaint
Yeah,
I've heard, and
yeah.
and just the idea that it's like it could have been a DLC essentially because it's a lot of the same ground covered now. I don't know how fair that is
And some
necessarily,
people
but
complaining about the character design, and I can whatever. People are very huge about censorship nowadays. I don't find a huge deal with it. I can see why
wait, what's
people.
what's wrong with the character design?
Well, Jill's design in the original Resident Evil 3 Nemesis was much different than what they did with her
With
here.
sexier,
Yeah,
yeah.
it was sexier. Yeah, and it's
I
very.
don't, but that's what I was gonna say, dude. I think that was like I think they did
Oh no, I don't
make her
mind it at
design a little
all. If she's in jeans and a tank top, I don't care. Like
Well, it's like
that's
yeah, right.
casual
Well,
wear. That's casual wear. Like
dude,
whatever.
it's kind of like I remember when the new Tomb Raider was announced. When they did the remake and kind of like upresed they did the Daniel Craig thing
Yeah,
in a totally new direction, and
yeah,
it's a great game. But like obviously they had to modernize Lara Croft, and they couldn't make her look like pointy,
yeah,
6 polygon boob
yeah.
PS1 version. Like,
But
that's to be expected. I don't
I
know.
think
It's fine.
my main issue with any of these redesigns is that whenever they do it and then they make a big deal about it, for me it's just do it. Like just do it, and you don't need to go into this tirade on like how you're taking modern sensibilities into mind. Like, that just makes me feel like you have an
Yeah, dude.
agenda. So
Yeah.
just
Yeah.
do it because it makes sense. Like Jill's
Right.
wearing that because it's casual clothes, like
Yeah,
jeans and
dude.
a tank top. Like yeah, I know like Resident Evil 3. The excuse that she's in that sexy outfit is that like again it's also casual clothes. That she was just out having a night and all of a sudden gets attacked and then Raccoon City starts falling apart. Like
Yeah.
makes sense. You
Yeah.
can,
Right.
but she's also wearing jeans and a tank top here. She's not
But
wearing
that's just
tactical gear. Like
yeah, right. But and
that's also casual clothes.
it's
So
just a non-issue. You know what I mean? It's like you could. It's just not a. If it's not all that. Honestly, like, but that's what they did in the first in Resident Evil 2 remake. They gave you the original outfits in their ridiculous kind of absurd look,
yeah,
given the photorealistic graphics of today. But like as extra, as like as
I don't know
Easter
if they
eggs
I don't know if they put that
in three. No,
in three.
I'm sure they probably didn't. Yeah.
Yeah, I have no idea. Like maybe they didn't. Like I'm not for censorship, but it's that for something like that, like a redesign. Like whatever. Like this is coming from the guy who like maybe I'm just a stockings guy, but I like to redesign for Tifa in Final Fantasy VII. So
Yeah. No.
for me, I'm
No.
like, yeah. But some people didn't like it because they thought it was censorship.
Well,
And
like, dude, fuck
that's
that. No, no, no. It's like, don't. It's not. It's not. It's about. I don't. It's not. It's not what they're trying to present.
well,
Like, if it's just tasteless,
it,
if
it,
it's
it,
just
it,
like
it
something.
yeah. It's also again. It's not the fact that you did it. It's the fact that you did it and then said you did it because of a certain reason. It's like, well, this redesign was encouraged by the Square Enix ethics department. It's like the what?
Okay. Yeah.
like like
Well, don't even get me started on the
it's like
Battlefield
if
5.
you had
Like
just
they.
said that like we redesigned this character because we thought it looked cool. It's like all right, like I'm not gonna argue against that, but it's like you tell me like we did this because we were told to by our ethics department. It's like why is your ethics department making you redesign a woman character? Like who cares? Like, or
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. It's just.
it stinks of the EA thing. Where like we're doing this because we're trying not to adhere to modern standards of beauty or something like that. It's like who cares?
Well,
Like
really, dude,
just make a good
it's like
game.
it's not just gaming companies, but companies, you know, like corporations are they love to ride the woke train, right? That's like the new thing. And so what we're describing really is like EA trying it's kind of like how the hypocrisy of like Amazon, big company promoting green energy when it's like but Amazon also uses systems that facilitate
Fossil
like
fuel, yeah,
bad pollution and or like sweat calling out Apple for sweatshops in
yeah,
China at the Emmys is hilarious because it's so fucking true. It's like but then at the same time they try to present they're trying to message this woke idea when it's like dude that has nothing to do with it. Like that's you're replying to numbers and stock shares
yeah.
and sometimes it's so like blatantly apparent. I don't think like the Jill outfit is probably on that level. It's like I don't know, that's just the PR idea fairy coming in.
Well,
But like for
again, it's like things that like people like they speak as if like I would care, and maybe I'm just impartial to a lot of things, but like I think I like Apex Legends. It's a fun game. I don't play it myself because I just like a battle royales. But like at the
yeah,
moment it came out, EA their PR department's like, by the way, did you know like 4 of these characters were gay? It's like
it's like thanks.
I don't care. like like I really just don't care if he likes to suck dick or not. I don't know.
Well, dude, it's not. I mean,
like
come on. Like I the difference there's a chasm of a difference between what Apex Legends is doing to promote that and what Last of Us is doing. You know, it's
Yeah,
like there's authentic and very real, visceral characters who have emotional resonance, and like, you know, what I find frustrating is that it's not authentic, right? It's like you're like your attempt is it's not it's like I don't know, it's a disservice to the soul, to the human element of like of all of it. Like it just doesn't make any sense to me that you wouldn't like I don't know, it's kind of like shallow representation to
yeah.
me.
Like
You know what I mean?
saying, like again, like saying something is done because of this reason cheapens it. I think
Yeah. Yeah.
that's the biggest thing for me. Is like we did this because we wanted this. It's like,
Yeah.
don't tell me that's why you did it.
Well,
Just
like
do it.
yeah, right. And I'm kind of, you know, on the and this is really tangent thing, but
I
like
know
on the
you.
philosophical level, on the philosophical level, I'm a huge proponent of free speech, but I can also understand how that can get people into trouble. Like, you know, look at stand up comedy as a perfect example. I think it's a great microcosm of like political philosophy being exercised in the open because they can literally say what they want, and sometimes it's really contentious shit that offends people. You know, but at the same time, when people like go all, you know, crazy and like try to you know, the cancel culture reaction to sometimes that is often sometimes like an overreaction.
It's
um
always an overreaction. Let's be real. Like,
right, so it's like, but you know, the idea is that you know, that you know, that's the whole fundamental purpose of freedom of speech. It's that even even if you're going to say something hateful or something harsh or something, you know, derivative, the idea is that that being in the open is so much more healthy for
oh
society.
yeah, and
The
like,
fact that you vocalize that in
yeah,
public, then people get to criticize the content of what you're saying and dissect it and say,
yeah,
no, you're wrong for these reasons, or you know, you're or this. But it's so much healthier to be open and honest and transparent, you
the
know, in a kind of democratic setting, and than it is
yeah,
to be
the
in the shadows, if that makes sense.
the
And so,
best the best cure for a bad idea is sunlight.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
right.
so
And so yeah, and so like, but you know, here's an example that I thought was a compelling ethical question to me, right? Because like you know, this is a fascinating subject. Battlefield 5 painting the picture of World War II, right? It's such an interesting like controversy to me because when Battlefield 5 was released, just to catch everybody up, they showed this trailer that was like in engine and it was showing like combat, but it was showing the squad move through the level, right? And just basically showing you like the environmental destruction and oh, bullets shoot through walls, really cool. You know, you can heal your boys and the reload animation's really sweet and sexy. Well, what they showed was like all the characters were wearing these wacky ass freaking outfits. I mean, and we're not just talking wacky like by some small metric. We're talking a prosthetic arm, you know, like a hook, like an authentic like prosthetic hook for a hand, uh, from the elbow down, from this like sniper female character who is wearing a British jacket, you know, an American kind of like dungarees, and it's just kind of like you know, it's really small in blue face paint, you know,
oh yeah, it makes
and then
sense.
another guy looks like Walter White, you know, with a full beard. He's wearing a wife beater, you know, and somehow he's on the Allied team. Doesn't make any, you know, like there's no, and it's not. I mean, it's just so hilariously like you know, and obviously what they're trying to do is just showcase all the cosmetics that you're going to be able to get in the game.
But
But
even
what they
then, yeah,
completely bungled, right, is the core Battlefield fan is a person who's just like me, who grew up on, who's most likely a guy. You know, I'm not trying to like, I'm not trying to ostracize or out or say like Battlefield is for, you know, a, you know, mid 20 males who grew up on Saving Private Ryan, which I do think that's what the core like audience is. I just don't think a lot of,
no, yeah, you
I
should
don't think that's an experience for
when
like
you make
a
something,
lot of drone gamers.
you should know what your core audience is. Don't try to appeal to
Right.
everyone or no
And
one
I'm not,
likes it, kind of thing.
right, right. And even then, but like, okay, so here's the more specific example. That was just the initial. But then it got really strange. They released a mission. They released a mission where you play as a German, that's right, a German tank commander at the end of the war. So it's
Ooh,
like literally the fall in 1945. the when the Russians took the Reichstag and Berlin is just completely crumbling and it's just the last thing. And I don't remember all the specific details, but it's kind of like one, it's completely and fucking utterly scandalous in my opinion that you let the the audience play as the Germans as like a guy who's literally wearing a Nazi uniform, right, and not explain the context of what that means because like there's a the specific example that I'm trying to bring up right now is that there's a row of on a street there's a row of banners like you've seen a million times in the World War II footage and photos and stuff like that, and they're the long crimson red banners with the white, with the Nazi symbols in the white, right? But the problem is because Battlefield is not trying to depict Nazi shit and not trying to make anything like political, and because Nazi like the swastika itself is actually illegal to be represented in any kind of media in places like Germany and most of Europe, if I remember right. So like
Not in Asia though,
literally,
because Asia is like, no, it means it's a symbol for peace.
yeah, right, right, right.
Like,
So like,
yeah,
and not even and you can still display it as freedom of speech in the states, but in Germany, for instance, like Wolfenstein got edited. Hitler couldn't have that stash, literally because it's illegal to display a Hitler stash in German media, which is hilarious. But so anyway, but like the idea is that you're riding down the street and there's these red banners, but on this version of the red banners, it's not a swastika; it's just the Iron Cross, right? And it's kind of like, okay, here's the problem with that. The Iron Cross is still used by the German represent. It's a medal, like it's a like the Iron Cross is still it's uniquely German military. It's not they desperately don't want it to be associated with Nazism, with
yeah.
this, it's a separate thing, right? That's what and so when I was in the army and I saw German tanks, they had Iron Crosses on them,
Hmm.
for like anyway. So like it's not that significant, but the idea is that could you imagine like do you really think that that would have been the design choice that they would not have represented that that thing authentically like in like that the problem is in real life that wasn't an Iron Cross, it was a fucking swastika,
Yep.
right? Could you imagine if you were a Jew and you were in the writing room in the Battlefield team and you're like, yeah, we're just gonna change how we remember this shit, and it's just the Germans just have this like it's just a it's a military honor thing. It's not about anything else. It's like I could see at the very least why that would be offensive, and I can also see how there's no possible fucking way you had a Jewish person in the writing room because they would tell you how completely like insane it is to like misrepresent what that means to a
Yeah.
person like to just like to somebody who would be completely wholly existentially sensitive to that sort of thing. And so what I realize is that for them it's not about authenticity, it's not about like theme or like tone or commitment to any realism or any or like truth. It's about money, they're just trying to kind of rub your elbow and be like, "Hey, remember all the Iwo Jima scenes you ever loved in World War II movies? Like, well, here's your chance to just live that dream." And it's like, dude, that's not I don't know, man. It's just the worst World War II game I've ever
Well,
played. I don't know. That was a
isn't there a
long
mission
rant. Sorry.
in Battlefield like 5 too, where like an entire troop of men did it, but in the game it portrays it as a single woman doing all of it?
Yeah, yeah, right. And it was like it's not to say that the problem the most frustrating part is there were plenty of badass women in World War II
The Russian
who
front.
deserved the spotlight.
Yeah.
Literally, there were Russian sniper women who got hundreds of kills, more kills than fucking Audie Murphy, the most decorated American in history. Like these women were hunter killer apex predators, and they were the Chris Kyles of Russia, right? Or like that's one example that I can think of. And I heard a interesting video that gave plenty of other examples. But the problem is they're when you're adjusting history, that's really a slippery slope, right? And I want to give people as much artistic license as they deserve. And I really don't like honestly, I wanted, this is
Well, I think
really
well,
I
if you let
wanted to
me
be on board with some of this stuff.
yeah, if you let me
I
cut
like
in, if you let me cut in real quick, I
oh
think
yeah,
it
no,
should
please.
it should be artistic license within the context of where you're choosing to do something in. Like you choose to restrict yourself with history when you're doing historical
Yeah,
context.
right. Yeah,
Like,
right. Exactly.
you can't just think like, oh, well, I want to be creative, so I'm just going to change how history was. It's like, no, that's not how this works. like,
Yeah, right.
like
Well,
if you're going to choose to be in a historical period, you better be as accurate as possible for that authentic feel to it, and just to honor history and the actual events that happened. You don't want to like
yeah.
tell your idealized version of it, and
Well,
like,
and, I at this, I don't know. It's kind of a funny because here's like I think you're right. And I think you're right to an extent with especially with icons that have such a distinct and specific imagery that we can all recognize. Like everybody knows, everybody's it's a very familiar pop cultural icon. And just well, and it's not about culture, like pop culture, that's offensive. Like World War II is still in the front of a lot of people's minds. Like even if it's just separated by a generation, the fact that it still is so ingrained in media and in historical context, political context, like it's a it's different than like World War One, for instance, being idealized in Battlefield One was a great experience for me, and I never thought I would have wanted that. But at the same time, if you had made a World War One game that was authentic or more authentic than Battlefield One was, it 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 would be too frustrating. It'd be too god awful because that's how bad it was. But then at the same time, like there's the give and take.
what
There
you
isn't that same emotional reaction to World War One,
are you sure?
and
Are you sure you didn't want to sit in a trench for 5 months and then
yeah,
take one step
yeah,
out and
right.
die? like,
Yeah, exactly. Die of typhus.
yeah,
Yeah,
God,
but like, but at the same time, like they made, I think they took liberties in some sense in Battlefield One, like loose. They put in things that were authentic to World War One, just really cool, weird, weapons that would have been completely, on the front lines of like innovation and not mass produced to anybody. Like nobody's gonna get a freaking automatico submachine gun in the line the
yeah,
line private is not going to get
yeah.
that shit. That dude is going to have a bolt action carbine and he's going to like it. So like, but at the same time that's the fun part, right? Like that's where you can take the liberties but not, it I don't notice that weird, I don't notice that being like unrealistic because the soldiers all look like World War One authentic soldiers, or like, it just it works. But then Battlefield 5 just turns it up to, just turns them all into GI Joes. It just doesn't make any sense. Like they're all wearing completely mismatched, disjointed outfits that cross allied, powers and stuff. And I'm like, dude, if you're gonna make this game anyway, you might as well just called it GI Joe Battlefield.
Or you
It
call,
would have been
or
it would have it it would have
they
the
could have,
marketing would have been
yeah,
more successful.
they could have recovered so hard if they just made it a post-apocalyptic battlefield.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
That way,
something like
all
that,
the
dude.
outfits would have made sense. like it's like, oh yeah, okay, I
Yeah,
get it now.
call
That's
it
fine, whatever.
Battlefield New Vegas.
Oh man, could you imagine a Fallout game with
Battlefield
Battlefield
game.
combat? That's a
I
mashup. Oh my god.
Oh, really, all I want in the world is for somebody to dethrone the Battlefield, for Dice from that genre because there's no other game, you know, say what you will about Call of Duty and some of these other first-person shooters, and they do their own things respectively, but literally nobody does it like Battlefield.
Yep.
And that's the argument I think from the core Battlefield, community is like even Call of Duty tried to replicate that in Modern Warfare, with vehicles and stuff like that, and it's just not even close to the same competency. It's just like something about the engine and the number of people and the vehicles and the physics, and it's just an
Now,
amazing
if
experience.
only they can release the game without having to work on it 2 years afterwards.
I know, right, dude? And really, yeah, I want somebody to come up and just be like, "Hey, man, you guys don't do this all that well." Like, because the frustrating part is that if you made Battlefield 3 as it released back in the day, right, and you released it right now, it would do better than Battlefield 5 in a minute. Battlefield 3 holds up to this day. It's still beautiful. It is crisp.
It is a
It's
fun ass game.
it's a great ass game,
Yeah.
and
That's like,
the idea that like we haven't been able to iterate or innovate
yeah,
for
out of
that
all
is
the military shooters I've ever played, I'm pretty sure I have the most hours sunk into Battlefield 3.
Well, dude, if you want
Yeah.
to play one of these days, you should just hit me up because I
Yeah.
would love to play Battlefield.
Oh my god, yeah. Oh man, it's been so long since I played. Do I have one
Oh,
on
they
PC?
have
Yeah.
servers. Oh, do you have the PC version? You said?
I don't know, I'm trying to figure out if I had the PC version. I'm pretty sure I just played it on Xbox.
Oh, really? Oh,
Yeah.
cool.
Yeah, I did all right. I don't know, like I forget, for some reason just that Battlefield 3 was just like clicked with me the most. I don't know why, it was just
Oh yeah.
3. The story was meh, but
Oh yeah. Yeah, no, let's not. It wasn't about the story,
it
but
was the
the
multiplayer.
DLCs were incredible. I thought it was a great. I thought Battlefield 4 was pretty good, but I think I still like Battlefield 3 a little better for some reason. I don't know what it is, but
So anyway,
I think, dude. Oh, I went. I was gonna tell you, I went 47-10 in Battlefield 1 the other day,
that's
uh,
disgusting. That's disgusting.
which is pretty good considering.
I suck at shooters in general, so when I get a 1.0 kill death ratio, I'm happy.
Yeah, dude. It was mostly the OP meta in Battlefield 1. You heard it here. Is the cavalry class
Oh
because
my
the
god.
horse, there's no recoil for the Russian rifle that you spawn with.
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, and you just
No
oh,
recoil even in the slightest. It's like using a turret that you can move, just to it's great.
and it's a
It's
mouse and
amazing.
keyboard, so you're cheating. So yeah, no.
Yeah. And you can heal yourself and give yourself ammo. So you can literally just go on a you can
Can you
you can
f-
just survive for a really long time.
can
That's
you
how I
fight a tank
maintain
with
that.
it though?
What's up?
Can you fight a tank with it?
You literally have, dude, the grenades you throw are anti-tank grenades.
Oh my god.
Yes, you literally can. It's amazing.
What in the world?
And you can replenish your grenades as often as you want. Cheating, it's like the best kept secret in that game because people just aren't very good at it.
But if
But
you
if you
are
just
good
know what
at
you're
it,
doing, man. Yeah.
it's that skill play based gameplay coming into action. It's not realistic at
Yeah.
all, but it's there.
Oh, dude. Oh, dude. I mean, yeah, I guess it's not realistic because your
Well, like
horse is taking like
Verdun
machine gun
is like realistic
perpetually.
World War I, and yeah, no, you die all
Yeah.
the time.
Oh, fuck that. Yeah. See, that's what I mean. Like that game looks so unfun.
Yeah.
And it's like, God.
Like, yeah, you want realistic World War One portrayal? Just poke your head out and you die. It's like, I guess so. Like,
Dude, you know what? I need to just bitch a little bit more about this. Like, I can't believe they bunked 2 in Battlefield 5. I can't believe they did it. It was in their hands, man. Like, coming off Battlefield 1 and 10 years of experience of Battlefield games that were epic. Like, they literally, like, going from Battlefield 3, 4, and then they made Hardline, which Hardline was just okay. But then they came back and made 1, and it was like, boom, back in action.
yep.
And it's like, dude, going into a World War II themed Battlefield game, I literally
Um,
thought it was going to define the next 10 years of my gaming.
yeah, like you cannot hack. It's like one of those ideas where like you can't fuck this up.
Oh, dude, they fucked it up so bad.
Welcome to the console generation. I sound super negative, guys, but like,
No, it's so
welcome to
true.
modern console gaming
Yeah,
or modern gaming in general. Where like it's like you cannot possibly fuck this the idea up, and then not only
yeah.
do they like do it, but they do it in such a way you're like, how?
How
like,
did
like, how did this happen? Like Anthem. How do you mess up?
Oh,
How do you
dude,
mess
those.
up Iron Man
Yep.
Simulator RPG? Uh,
Oh, it's impossible. I can't believe how they goofed that game.
and it's like
I just
Destiny. Like
God,
some people like Destiny, and good on you for liking it. I don't
fuck you
like
if
it.
you like Destiny. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I don't like it. I think it's a very lazy game in general.
derivative. Yeah,
Yeah, it's like
yeah.
it because like it boasts like quote unquote MMO content without nearly having as nearly as much as content as a normal MMO does, and
It
that's
must.
what makes me angry.
Yeah,
And
it
then people,
must just be magical for the co-op people.
yeah,
And I like, and the guys who love to do the raids and shit like that, because for the people who love it, they apparently really love it. You
yeah.
know,
Well,
but that is just
the raids look like they put effort into it, and that's the main thing. Was like,
yeah, dude.
why couldn't all the things in the raids just be in the campaign? Like,
Yeah, I like the gunplay. Don't get me wrong, because
yeah,
like I've actually when it went free to play, I downloaded it on the PC and transferred my characters over, which is pretty cool. And I played this mode called what's it called? The green one. I can't
Gambit.
remember what it's. Gambit. Yeah. Oh, I play Gambit religiously because it's just like it's a fun little game. It just feels like playing Splitgate or like Halo, kind of SWAT. It just feels like quick and a lot of like PVE mixed in with PvP. That's my jam. Like that's what I want to play
Titanfall 2.
in a game. I want to mix the two together. Like
Titanfall
loved it.
2. It's good.
Titanfall, Battlefront, that sort of shit.
Oh my god.
So yeah. Anyway, like I yeah, I don't know what I was gonna say.
But yeah, like, but yeah, like it's nowadays I super jaded for some reason. I just turned into super jaded old man. But like, yeah, like modern gaming nowadays sucks in comparison. Well, I mean, again, I'm probably on the nostalgia train currently, so that's my bias for right
Yeah.
now. But yeah,
I think I have to get used to the idea and like correct me if I'm wrong, dude, but really it's once every 10 years that a game truly just blows me the fuck away. Like and there's like I can think of a couple examples that get close, but when I'm reminded of I don't like I it's funny because I didn't think I'd be all that disappointed with this console generation. Like I do really like God of War. I like Last of Us. I like
well,
I'm
yeah,
listing all the Sony titles. Like most of the Sony titles I played, I really liked and enjoyed for the time they were. Resident Evil, Final Fantasy VII is like the same kind of like linear experience. But once those are over, Jedi Fallen Order, like once those are over, they're really over.
yeah.
Like they're just not. Sekiro, I'm up to New Game Plus 3, and I've decided myself, just because I'm bored, I'm gonna finish the rest of New Game Plus 3 as a no health, as a no heal run.
Ooh, that's
Um,
interesting.
just because it's like that's literally Greer, that's how good I am.
All
No,
right.
but like that's like it's weird, but that's what that game teaches you the fun to be is just is like mastery, total memorization and utter
Yeah.
mastery. And so it's like
Well,
I'm fighting Genichiro right now, and I haven't actually beat him on purpose because I just like fighting him so much. It's just a fun ebb and flow, and like once I kill him, I know I'm not going to be able to touch him until I have to fight Ishin again,
and that you don't
and
like that fight.
I don't have to wait that long. So anyway, but
Yeah,
like,
yeah. What-
what's up?
Yeah, I understand like totally that it's not yeah nowadays again I was describing this I think in the last podcast or maybe I was like doing it off podcast but like uh there's so many games I play nowadays where it doesn't feel next gen to me. Like
Hmm.
I'm playing a game and it's like this feels like the previous gen with better graphics. Like even The Last of
Yeah,
Us, which like everyone's like,
Gears of War
great
5, dude.
great story. It's like cool, great
Yeah,
story. The actual
but it's
gameplay
not.
here is super basic. You can
It's
recreate this in
so
Half
basic,
Life.
dude. Yeah, and I'm like, and while I was playing like Jedi Fallen Order, I love that game. It was good when I was experiencing it, but I tried to go back and play it again, and I'm like, dude, I've done this, and there's nothing. It's so funny because like right now, you know what game I'm playing pretty often besides Total War Warhammer because I'm
And
a nerd.
Sekiro.
Is Overgrowth. Do you know what Overgrowth is?
Yeah, is it with the rabbits? Because
Dude, Rabbit Karate. That's what this game is.
has that
It's
game been updated since you bought it like that long
it
ago?
has been updated substantially, and it is a vibrant modding community. Well,
Really?
a modestly vibrant
When was the
community.
last official update?
I could probably look that up,
Kung Fu Rabbits. I just remember. Yeah,
dude.
you.
Oh, it is no, it's a great dude. It is. So this is what I just what blows me away. It's like you always say that thing about passion being palpable. Like the minutia of this game is better than every game I can think of on this console generation. The sheer like in terms of platforming, right? The parkour in this game is incredible. Like it just feels really good to wall run and jump and like, there's a great like clamor system kind of thing. You know what I'm
Yeah,
talking about in games where you like clamor,
yeah,
and it just and so a lot of the modded levels are just parkour levels or like arena levels where you're literally fighting waves of enemies and kind of like different scenarios with different weapons, but also on top of like skyscraper architecture that if you fall off you die and like but the physics there's physics on everything and like the blood trails drip and shit and like it's just there's a crazy amount of detail that goes into every little bit of this game, and yet it's such a simple, unsophisticated kind of uh, you know, tech demo of a game
Yeah,
because it's so indie. Yeah, if that makes sense.
yeah. Again, I remember being impressed when you played it back in college, dude. Like it's been forever since that game
Dude,
was revealed.
exactly,
Like,
exactly. But it's still like I've just been. I got so many cool mods and
yeah.
a bunch of great custom levels, and it's just
Well,
been
it's like nowadays
fun rubbing it in.
you can turn Skyrim into a completely different game with just mods. Like modders make modern gaming fun.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
yeah,
That's the hope I have because
yeah.
you're saying modern gaming sucks, and I do agree. But modern modding, like
Modern
modern
modding is the
PC
shit.
gaming, I think is on the cusp of something special. Hopefully,
Oh yeah, totally.
because
And
there's
then
some like devs who are desperate to keep that shit alive.
yeah,
Like for every new AAA that sells out and doesn't do the thing. Like I bet you, I'm really scared that the next Elder Scrolls game is not going to have a lot of mod support because Bethesda's
dude.
just gotten too big
Fallout
and like.
4 was having a lot of issues with mod support. Like,
Yeah, right. Like, dude, I don't trust. I
and
don't know that I trust.
they're using the same engine
Fuck that.
for
Yeah,
Elder Scrolls
that
6. It's
makes
like,
me
what
so
are
angry,
you
dude.
doing? Like,
Todd, you fucking asshole, if you're listening.
you seem like a nice guy, but man, your direction
Dude,
suck.
if you tell me that Elder Scrolls 6 is on a different engine, I am gonna flip out.
Well, it's like a again, like every time like I think of like Skyrim, it's like I don't ever think of base Skyrim as like the game I'm always gonna remember. It's always modded Skyrim that I'm always gonna remember.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Right.
And then like because
Well, I put on to this day, dude.
playing base Skyrim, I'm like, man, this game is boring.
Yeah.
like there's nothing going on right now. And
I
then
will say, trying to go back to Skyrim after playing The Witcher 3 recently,
oh god,
completely impossible. I
yeah.
can't. I don't know that I'll ever be able to do.
I
Even I modded Skyrim to shit,
again walking
but damn, dude.
any city compared to Nova is always gonna be compared to Novigrad.
For the love of
Always.
God, Greer, for your sake, because you would love this, you have
You go to
to
Tucson.
play the DLC,
Yeah.
you bastard. You got to go to Tucson. It's a great, great DLC, and it's definitely your speed. It's all knights errant.
Oh
It's
my god. Okay.
Bretonia. Like that's exactly what it is. It's literally Geralt's trip to Bretonia, and it's magical. And
That's
you're hunting
perfect.
vampires, and it works.
Yeah.
The 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 nice lady who gives you quests is super cute.
It's super
It's
cute.
all it checks all the boxes, man.
Oh my god, it's great. But
Cute
yeah,
quest
like
lady.
yeah, like that's like The Witcher again is one of those games where I'm playing it. I'm like, okay, this feels truly next gen. Like gaming has taken a step forward with this one right here, and I don't
Yeah.
know. I just feel like a lot of games are just like hyper refined or even like hyper graphics refined versions of older games. Like
Yeah, no, that's true. Gears of War
even
5 is a
even
perfect example
yeah
of that, dude.
yeah even Halo to an extent
Yeah.
suffers from this where the first Halo comes out and it's groundbreaking. And then Halo 3 comes out and that's also like
Well,
really
dude,
legit.
that's
And then
that's
Halo
another engine limitation, though.
yeah, and then Halo 5 comes and it just feels like Halo 4,
Yeah.
but like not as even it like Halo 4 for me was like the last like I enjoyed playing this Halo game. Halo 5 I'm like
Ugh.
what happened with the story?
No,
And
man.
then
Halo 4, I was
even the
like,
gameplay
what?
design really made me bored too just cuz I don't know. It just it didn't. Halo 4 is also not very good in its gameplay design either because you just go and press buttons all the time. But like
Yeah.
in the writing department, like writing doesn't really determine next gen. Like I can't say anything about writing in terms of like next gen definition. But like,
Well,
uh,
yeah, dude. I tried to go back and play Red Dead 2, and I can tell you right now that, like,
I will say that Red Dead 2 is one of those games I'm like, yes, this is definitely next gen. But
yeah.
hot damn, do I not want to walk into a store and buy anything again? Because
Yeah.
it's a
I
process. It's
I don't get me wrong, like it's cool that it exists and it's definitely for some people. But the problem is the more I play it, the more I realize the video game specific flaws. And I know that might even be unfair because the game is such a narrative focus. Like
yeah,
that's really where the magic happens, and
it's an
that's where it earns
experience.
all of its street cred.
Yeah,
Like Red Dead 2's story is great, but the gameplay is so it prioritizes animation over input and feedback every step of the way, and that never feels good. That always feels slow and mechanical, and the choke button is somehow magically the same button as get on your horse.
it's floaty,
Yeah, yeah,
as
right. It
and people
feels just
describe it.
floaty as fuck.
Yeah, I
It's
actually
like,
think animations have been like the detriment of a lot of video games
yeah,
in a
because
way.
yeah, right, yeah,
Yeah, because like before using Kingdom Hearts as an example, Kingdom Hearts 2, you turned on a dime, like you just snap turned and everything like that.
yeah, yeah, right,
Kingdom Hearts 3, when you turned, there was an animation for you turning, which is impressive technically. But at the same time, though, you're slower to react, therefore you can't react as quickly as your controller wants you to, as
yeah. It
you're
feels
using the
slow as
controller.
shit.
So
Yeah,
it makes everything feel slower. And yes, it looks nicer, quote unquote. But at the same time, though, 5 minutes into it, you just forget about it and just get frustrated by the fact that you have less response time now because of
yeah,
it.
exactly.
Like again, graphics are. I'm always gonna maintain graphics are only cool for the first 5 hours you're gonna play something.
Well, bro, that is overgrowth. Seriously,
Yeah.
has in terms of a combat system. It is so simple. It's like, you know how Mario only really has two buttons, the jump button and the
Yeah.
not jump button.
It's
Like,
like instant
and
context in which you're doing it, which makes it good. Kind of thing.
yeah, and there's so much variety in the way that they throw it together that it just makes it fun and it just lasts the length of the game.
Oh yeah,
Well, like,
all the Nintendo Switch games have felt more next gen than the
yeah,
PS4,
yeah,
Xbox
I
games.
definitely agree with that. I
Yeah,
think Nintendo has an eye for that.
yeah.
But overgrowth, like the foundation there, right there, like I could play. It's so simple. It's such a simple game. It doesn't. It's not much more sophisticated than like Mario, but it just feels so good to like kung fu fight other little rabbits and shit, and like even the size of the animal counts for something. The dogs throw things a lot more than every other type of species, so you get really got to watch out because they'll throw their sword at you and it'll just kill you in one hit. It's like, and there's literally some mods that are making open world games in the overgrowth engine, and I'm like,
Um,
dude, could you imagine an open world game on the magnitude of like some AAA studio, like a Zelda game, but with the overgrowth formula where it's just like floaty kung fu, floaty in a good way, like high jumps and like responsive like combat and like judo throws as like counters and
yeah.
stuff, and then weapons.
You
I don't know, man. I'm
if you
just like,
think about it,
dude, man, this could be so cool. Like
yeah.
it,
If you think about, I think a
Ellen Ring.
flaw of modern gaming is that it strings together essentially a bunch of scripted micro events together. Like just take parkour in Assassin's Creed.
Yeah,
It's a set animation every time you're climbing up some stuff, and then yeah, they have
yeah,
variations and everything like that. But like you're pressing buttons for events to happen, and it's active, so you feel involved in it. But at the same time, though, it's not like something like Mario where you're jumping, you're manipulating your path with the jump, and also your other techniques in the air to essentially skip certain parts of the environment if you want to. And in Assassin's Creed, you can do that to certain things. Don't get me wrong. But you are more animation and you stick to
yeah,
things way more
yeah.
often
So
in Assassin's
yeah,
Creed as compared to like Mario, where you can just, if you're good, you are godlike with
yeah,
Mario.
yeah,
And
yeah. Right.
I feel like that is a big thing with modern gaming too, is that the skill gap isn't as evident a lot. Like being good at a game sometimes isn't as satisfying as being good. Like if you're super good at Mario 64 and like skill wise you're really good at it, you will feel really good because you know that no one else can replicate what you did easily. And it's like Dark
Yeah,
Souls almost. Like if you can speedrun Dark Souls, that is an achievement. Like that is a testament to your skill. However,
yeah,
Assassin's Creed, everyone's going to do everything the exact same way. I'm sure there's some ways you can like speedrun it and
yeah,
be really quick and efficient
yeah,
about it, but like uh,
yeah. Right. No.
your fighting style is going to be largely the same as everyone else's. How you ran across the rooftop is going to be largely the same as everyone else's. And I
Yeah,
feel like it's just like it's almost like every gaming is becoming gray matter
yeah.
where like
My buddy.
everyone does the same thing. So when you talk
Yeah.
about it, there's not that varied interaction. Where like, yeah, I did this to do this.
Well, I'm
Instead,
playing,
it's
dude.
yeah, I did the thing. Like, yeah, I did the thing too, and then that's it.
I, I'm playing Assassin's Creed Odyssey on easy because I like, for me, like, one, I hate it, and yeah, I get why they do it in some games. Not it can be inoffensive because it's an easy way to draw down like difficulty.
Mm-hmm.
Like The Witcher, for instance, is a good example. Or a similar example to Assassin's Creed Odyssey, anywhere where the difficulty metric is just literally numbers and proportions for damage dealt and health pools and stuff like that. And what I noticed when you're playing on medium or hard, I think I started on hard because like dude, come on, man, I'm on New Game Plus 3 and Sekiro
Yeah.
doing a no health run. Like I like difficulty when it's refined and curated and part of the experience because I truly believe you don't value what you don't earn.
Yep.
And so when a game forces you to earn something in accomplishing it, that just gets my jollies. It. I need it to be engaging, and sometimes that looks like a difficult game, but most of the time it's just a really refined gameplay loop or like a game design. Uh, but when a game like Assassin's Creed Odyssey just is like up and fudging numbers, and so like on medium, I'd be hitting the guys like 15 times with a sword, and they're bleeding all over the place, and it all looks beautiful and it's kind of like engaging, but it's just so dragged out, and I'm like, this is so completely unrealistic. And if I'm trying to role play as this character who's supposed to be Billy Badass, Misthios, Spartan heritage, warrior goddess, like she'd be killing mofos in a hit, dude. It's like same as Geralt. Like I just couldn't believe how silly it felt fighting like bandits on just the medium difficulty in The Witcher 3 and watching Geralt not kill a bandit with a single swing because it's fucking Geralt. Like homeboy would have complete, you just be mopping the floor with him.
Yep.
And so like and so I and in that way it also my priority too is to role play and like not get hit and make it as kind of stylish almost as I can because
Mm-hmm.
it's like that's the story in my head. Because that's the value. Like The Witcher, dude. If you're playing The Witcher for the
Plus,
difficulty, you're fucking
yeah,
wrong.
like plus deathmatch difficulty. Like again, like some people love it, I guess, because I don't know, they like it. Like, I'm not gonna knock them for
yeah,
liking it, but like
yeah.
for me, yeah, like I've been playing it on normal. I'm kind of like,
Playing which one?
yeah, The Witcher 3, because you don't
Oh
earn
yeah,
anything else from doing it on like the harder difficulty. So I'm kind of just like, man, I'm about to switch just to easy, so just so I can enjoy the story. It's not
that's what
because
I
I
mean, dude.
suck at
Yeah,
the game. It's because I just
yeah,
find it tedious.
yeah, right. And
Like,
at the same time, I do notice that combat is kind of few and far between like that. So like, but at the same
like
time,
yeah, that's a game where like
because it's just numbers. If you don't upgrade your gear, which the other thing is that I just kind of wanted to be passive about that. I don't like crafting in games. I don't want to spend the time to like find the Super Saiyan Witcher gear, because it's just like that. Like at least in the like I've done that before in The Witcher
well,
3 anyway.
with
In my
games like
last
The Witcher
playthrough.
3, I'm always like I look up the armors online, like what's the coolest armor,
Yeah,
and
right.
then like
Well, like
I find the
yeah,
coolest armor that just speaks to me, and then I go get it, and then
and
I'm
then
like,
you just never change it.
and
Yeah,
then never change it. Follow
that's
follow
well,
follow
you're
New
right. You're
Vegas.
right.
I was like, how do I get the NCR Ranger armor
Yeah,
as
yeah,
fast as
yeah.
possible? I get it, and
Exactly.
then I play like 70 hours of just me in that armor.
Yeah.
like these stats suck, but I look great.
Hmm. Yeah. No, I totally understand.
Yeah,
Yeah, like that's what I'm doing right now. Is like I got my Ursine armor, my bear armor,
yeah.
and it's upgraded, and that's what I'll be wearing for the rest of the time. I usually I'll change my gauntlets and my legs sometimes just to kind of like, for instance, because I'm in Bretonia and it's a bunch of knights, like I put on like steel armor, gauntlets, and leggings because I'm like, if I had to get in a fight with a knight errant, he'd be in full plate, so I need to be in full plate,
Oh,
because I'm just being a
for me,
nerd
it's
about
like
it.
as a how you do the role play. I do the role play in the terms of D&D, where like because of D&D, I hate looters. No, I don't hate looters, but like I'm not a fan of looters because I like the idea of when you find a piece of gear, it's
Mm,
special and like you'll be wielding this for a long time. At least
gotcha.
fifth edition D&D, you're like you find the special sword. You better like that sword because you're gonna be using that sword for like 10 levels. I
Nice.
was like, cool. Yeah, I'll use this sword for 10 levels. Let me,
You
let,
psyched for Baldur's Gate, BT Dub? You big D and
uh,
D nerd?
yes,
New one?
actually, it looks really fun. It feels too much like Divinity right now for me to make it for me to connect it with D&D. But I mean, I'm sure it's in early access. I'm sure they'll make it more Baldur's Gate esque as
Well,
we're
did
going
you
on.
did you like Divinity Original Sin 2?
Oh no, yeah, Divinity Original Sin 2 is a really fun game. Like I like
Can we
The
play
Divinity
co-op,
games.
or is that like
You can play co-op.
do
It's
you have it?
also I do have it. Yeah, It's also
I would
a
much rather play a D&D style campaign in a game like that to
yeah.
learn it, but I don't know. I mean, if it
If you
didn't
want
isn't
to,
it
yeah.
like Super D&D style?
Turn based, yes, but like again,
Yeah.
the way skills work, the way stats work, and everything that's completely different. So
Oh,
like
okay.
yeah, I because I'm a
But
nerd, I make
well,
builds like I'm gonna play through like this kind of thing,
gotcha.
and the combat can be really slow if
Yeah.
you're not careful.
Yeah.
And, yeah, so like you gotta be careful with that,
I
especially
want to be into that, but it's just hard
yeah,
because I'm not a turn-based
and
guy. But
even
if
for
I had
me, like
somebody
even
to
for
come
me,
up with it,
who's coming off Final Fantasy VII remake, jumping into like games like that, I'm like, man, the Final Fantasy VII remake did it so well that I wish like every game's combat was just like that,
mm,
almost. And I know
well,
that's me being a shameless fanboy.
well, dude, you're telling
Spoilers.
me, man. I'm coming off of like I can't stop playing Sekiro because it's like I'll play Sekiro and then play the game that I'm trying to get through because I'm kind of cross imagining. I want to play the other game. Like I wish upon a star that I could play in a world as big and open and magical as The Witcher with the mobility and the game style of Sekiro. Like
Oh
that's
God,
the magic. You know,
yeah.
that's my gaming wet dream at this point. And I just can't, like that's what I'm so excited about Elden Ring for is like how they're going to iterate even more on a really successful mix of like platforming and kind of combat.
I hope they do it really well.
God, I hope they do, man.
You need your Final Fantasy VII remake. Which,
I need it.
by the way, was supposed to be the subject of this podcast, but we went on a
Yeah,
tangent.
yeah,
Yeah,
we went on a tangent. Yeah, dude.
I think yeah, like I think yeah, going back to what we are talking about, like that game has been one of the games where I'm playing this. I'm like, oh yeah, I'm in the next gen now, like because that game just feels like a next gen game. Like
Yeah.
you had to remake a PS1 game for me to make it feel like I'm actually in a new era of gaming. Because like yeah, again,
It's a weird
as
time,
I've
yeah.
already gushed about for 2 hours in the previous podcast. Like again, it's just a game that makes me feel like I'm in that era of PS1 creativity and like energy,
Yeah,
where
dude. No, I
it's
got you.
still and to sound like a hipster, but gaming was still more niche, and as
Mm.
a result, the passion was way more palpable in things. It wasn't as corporatized.
Yeah,
Wow,
that's for
I
sure.
sound snobbish as hell right now when
Mm.
I say that, but like, but yeah, like
Mhm.
and then it reeks of that, and then I got to the ending, uh, controversial to a lot of people, but I liked it. It's I don't know, like, do you know what the ending is?
I don't.
Okay, I'm not gonna
But
spoil it. So,
well, you can tell me. I
well,
mean, is
it
it?
just imagine it's like it brings in like the JRPG trope of challenging fate, which like I don't play a lot of JRPGs, so I'm not as numb to it as other people are. So I understand
Yeah.
where they're coming from because it is a common trope. But at
So
the
I
same
mean,
time, what's up?
what's the context? Like, I'm guessing that good old Sephiroth is the big bad, and but he comes early because he's, it's kind of like alternate realities. He's like
Yeah.
dimension
Well,
hopping or something like that.
it's it leaves it vague on purpose. You're not really sure, but like the entire
Yeah.
time you're playing the game, he feels like he's just in a different continuity the whole time I'm playing. Like I called what they were gonna do within the first 10 hours. It was just in the back of my mind of like, oh, they're probably gonna do this since this is happening,
Well,
and
what were they gonna do?
just give you the ability to essentially just challenge the fate of the original game. I think,
Oh, okay.
and that is what made a lot of people angry, and that's entirely reasonable to be angry about that because, again, the original story is one of the most iconic of all time, and probably the story that I always go back to just find inspiration in anything. And what probably made this it sting worse for them is that 95% of this game is a faithful retelling and expanding on that story,
Yeah.
and then the last 5% throw you that the curveball where like things may be different here, and that's
Mm.
probably what got people angry. And I understand that is something you can be totally angry about and be reasonable about because
I don't
again,
see.
Square Enix nowadays it doesn't have the best track record in terms of
Mm,
storytelling. So if they're going to do
mm.
something new with an IP that you love, that's entirely fair to be skeptical about. At the same time, though, some people thought it was like because like there's certain aspects to the game where like people thought they were like making fun of the fans of the original and like giving them the middle finger with how they were treating what they thought was a representation of them. And I don't know. I was the interpretation that the way the story was going was that it's a game that's made for the older fans to play. Like, I think I saw a Sterling quote. I don't like Jim Sterling, but his quote made sense where he said that the games are meant to stand side by side with one another. That the Final Fantasy VII remake wasn't meant to replace Final Fantasy VII, and I think that's a very good way of looking at it. Like I don't like Jim Sterling, but that made perfect sense to me when he mentioned it that way.
So why do you like Jim Sterling? What's
I don't know. I just found him like too snobbish for me. Like a lot of his complaints, I'm like, what the heck? Or like he goes on too many tirades of like when
yeah,
some people
yeah.
like especially the gaming difficulty thing, where like he just portrays everyone who wants more get difficulty in games as elitist, and then he goes on for way too long with the joke, and I'm kind of like, I don't care, dude. Like,
Mm.
yeah, I just he probably has a lot of points that I would agree with. I just don't like the delivery of them. Like
Yeah, no,
nothing
yeah.
against the guy, it's just not my thing. Like,
Well,
yeah,
I understand. I think he has like a, I think he's got a really strong personality that comes off as kind of like, even just in the script, I guess, of his performance, it
and
tends to be like a very,
yeah,
and I think I don't know,
and
it's the YouTube algorithm responds more to negativity, and like
yeah,
I get that, but
pessimism.
and he has some good, like I like his analysis pieces. I tend to agree with on like, he'll give like his 2 cents on games and
Well,
where they do well. Like
I'm one of the
he,
weirdos that likes it when a game review has less personality.
yeah,
Like
yeah. Well, you
back in
probably
the days of
I'd be
game
interested to see
trailers,
what you thought of his Final Fantasy VII
yeah,
review because
like yeah, back in
I
the
really agree.
days of game trailers, I loved the reviews because it was always one dude reading them off, and it was always written by different people. But because it was
Yeah,
that one guy reading it off, he had the same voice entirely through all of them, and he never
yeah.
ever went on tirades that complained about any specific part of the game. He just delivered the facts, and there was nothing that like he didn't go off about anything that was problematic that he found problematic about the storyline or plot or characters. They just said the story is good because it delivers this very well, and like, I like that style of review. And sometimes when like your angry Joes who inject like
Well, what
so
you're
many
referring to
things
is
about it,
journalism,
yeah,
and that's few and far between. But
yeah. So like for me though, it's like that's the thing I miss.
but I guess that's what the irony of that is. You say it yourself, like Jim Sterling is not a journalist. He's
Yeah,
just giving his fucking hot take, and like I think we just give,
yeah,
we give influencers and all those other like
yeah,
windbag type
yeah.
internet personalities
And
like too much
yeah,
credence anyway because they're flawed people. But you know, like it is what it is.
yeah. Like I
He's
like again, like I people could like them, and they're not at fault for liking them. It's just not my thing. This is
yeah, no, I
how
got
I've
you.
been
I
like,
got you.
which is why like I guess for me, especially nowadays, like I just can't find a review where I like watching.
Yeah.
Like
Well, and also, dude, I honestly like these days I'm kind of just okay. So even coming off of Doom Eternal and uh, Jedi Fallen Order and some of these other games I'm thinking of, where it's like, while I'm experiencing it, I did enjoy it, I guess, but also this is not like I have 300 and some hours in Warhammer right now
mhm,
because that game is enormous. Like there is just so much content worth doing for the people who just like that experience,
yeah,
and the idea that the system can be so complicated and yet work so well, and like it's got its flaws, like there's plenty of balance issues and plenty of stuff they're going to work on, and like Warhammer 3 is going to be bomb diggity, but like comparing Warhammer 2 right now in its complete version plus all of the myriad, like literally I have 87 mods downloaded in Warhammer 2 right running.
I have
You know,
270 mods in Skyrim, so I feel you.
yeah, yeah, right. It's like and so like all that content, that just juicy content in that game. Like you played Doom Eternal for like 10 hours, and it was like, yeah, that was fun. Like it was good. It was a wham bash through hell, and like as far as a kind of a tit for tat video game, it was like it felt good and felt refined and fresh. But where's the longevity in a game like Doom Eternal? Like no offense, but are you gonna play that game? once a week.
Yeah.
Like probably not. It's not. It doesn't have the open-ended kind of longevity of a game, and and I'm not saying that that's necessarily status quo these days. Like, not every game needs to be open world or needs to be, 60 hours or some shit. But like what I'm looking for personally is longevity. Like I want a game that I can come back to, that I can
Yeah.
feel like doing another run of Dark Souls 3 sounds fun because I love playing that game.
Mhm.
Whereas like,
Well, again,
you
like
know,
having satisfying gameplay is just as important in a video game.
yeah,
Shocker, I
yeah,
know,
yeah, I
as
know, right?
having a good story. And I sometimes feel like the narrative takes place over gameplay. The Last of Us being a prime example of that. But like,
Gears 5, bad,
yeah,
bad sinner in that regard.
yeah, and like for me, yeah, for me, like again, your gameplay has to be great. And then to gush, Mortal Kombat 7 remake. Again, like I was playing that combat system. I'm like, this is my shit to a T, because it's like you can be a hack and slash, but then it's like a fighting game where you build up your meter and you use your meter to do special moves that do tons of damage, and then there's sparks everywhere, and you just feel super like that, like that like dumb button in your brain. Every time you push it, you just
Dude,
get happy. It just happens all the time, and I'm over here like, yeah, yeah. And not only that, but it's also challenging, so you can't just do it mindlessly. So
yeah.
all that
I'm
together
still
makes me
I'm still
happy.
butthurt about the no jump feature. So,
That is fair. Yeah, that's a fair thing. I mean, you
well, just because
automatically
I
jump if
typically
you're
like I'm
attacking
a
air weapons.
platformer guy, and my dream game is like, well, also Cloud being as mobile as he is in all the iconography since Final Fantasy VII.
Even
Like,
in Final Fantasy VII Remake, he does a lot of the same things. It's
yeah,
hilarious. Like again, there's some parts in that game where I'm like, okay, I need to cut off my belief right now,
suspension of
or
disbelief.
a suspension of disbelief, or I'm going to like just be like, why the fuck can I just jump this gap?
Yeah, dude.
Yeah, so like for
I
me,
just
that's just like I gotta
okay. So
go down
here's a
to it.
big make or break for me, because just personal thing. Can Are there alternate outfits you can unlock for Cloud?
For Cloud, no.
Well, sorry, two thumbs down.
Your weapons change, but your outfits don't really change. And
Fuck
again,
that. And
well, you want to unlock the Advent Children outfit? Is that what you want to do?
yes,
I knew it.
dude,
I
come
knew it.
on. Think everybody wants that. Everybody wants that. I want that. The
Yeah,
people want it.
say what you will about Advent Children as a movie, but those character designs were spot on. Aside from, I didn't really like Barrett's redesign there. The new
I don't
Barrett.
remember him specifically
Oh,
compared to New
well,
Barrett, but
yeah, new Barrett. The Barrett in the remake is great. He even made his character better too, which I thought was really awesome. Like he was a stereotype in the
yeah,
original. A stereotype with moments of depth. Don't get me wrong. People who are watching this and like remember the original game, like he had moments of depth, but like in the new one they give him a lot more moments to shine in that aspect. Like he's bombastic, as you can tell from the demo. You can hear the
yeah.
blood bleed. Yeah, but he's
Yeah,
also.
can you hear the blade of bleed?
But
Yeah.
there's also moments where like he's much more like subdued and also like tragic, which I enjoy because again, like every time they with like majority of what they did in the game to expand upon it, I ate up because I enjoy the universe of Final Fantasy VII. So
Yeah, of course.
shameless fanboy. Like so, don't look for unbiased takes here.
Did you run into Vincent Valentine in
I
the
did
first
not.
game?
No,
Yeah,
you're not gonna run into him until like we're probably not gonna run into him until like the second game or halfway through the second game maybe. But
yeah.
like, or maybe you just run into him in a different place entirely because the way the ending is. And yeah, like
I'm sure we'll
back
see him in the
yeah
second game, probably. In that little crypt,
yeah
doesn't he wake up in a coffin or some shit?
yeah only if you do a special thing to get to him early and all that. It's weird, but I think with me it's with like the ending, going back to the ending, which is what I wanted to talk about to make the whole podcast, but we got
Oh
off
yeah,
track.
good
Is
thing,
that
dude.
a lot of people like again have taken it as Square Enix giving fans the middle finger because in a way it's like it doesn't guarantee the old story is going to be retold in this new style.
Hmm.
Instead, like something new might come about entirely differently from it. But for me, it's kind of like, in a way, it's almost a celebration of the old games, of the old game. Like the old game still exists, this game can only exist because the old game exists,
Yeah.
and like as a result, you still have the old game to play and experience as you always have. This new game is going to take that take this experience from the old game and either deliver them to you in a new and different way, or change things up to where people who have stuck with the entire compilation and the entire like Final Fantasy VII universe have a new story to experience in this classical setting. And
Yeah.
a lot of people say that they're doing a J.J. Abrams thing with the Star Trek thing, and they're not wrong. But I do think it's done with a little more attention to detail and care than the way that J.J. Abrams handled like the reboot of Star Trek kind of thing.
Yeah, well, and I think you said it a couple times before, but it's just gonna matter about throughput. Like, it's gonna. I think the funny comparison there is that J.J. Abrams' first iteration wasn't bad. It was
Yeah,
pretty good,
yeah,
and then it just got worse. Like he just didn't have any
exactly. So
insight that worked
like
out.
I
Whereas
I can only hope it's
I would
good
hope that they don't
going
make that
forward.
mistake. Yeah.
I again like I gotta the feeling was much stronger this time, but like I remember when I first watched The Force Awakens, like I was excited at the ending. I watched that movie multiple times in theaters because I like the promise of something new in a universe
Yeah.
I loved. Looking back now, The Force Awakens is an extremely mediocre movie with a lot of plot
I'm.
conveniences, and
Yeah.
the addition of The Last Jedi makes that movie worse. Like
Yeah, I know, right?
so,
I'm scared of my future relationship with Star Wars, honestly. Like
yeah,
I've been watching The Mandalorian and I think I mentioned that to you a couple times, but like I got through two episodes and I'm just kind of like
dude,
literally based on what modern Star Wars has been recently,
yeah,
it has made me numb to
yeah,
all the nostalgia that otherwise would
would it
have
hit you in the
captured me,
face? Yeah,
and I'm just like, and honestly, man, I just can't get into the Mandalorian because I'm like, I just like, why do I care, man? Star Wars just
it's
like I don't
also
know.
like
I just
again, The Mandalorian for me was something when I watched it in the moment, I was like, this is great. And then like a week later, I looked back on it, and I was like, hey, it's okay. Like I'm not,
yeah, like
I would never watch it again religiously.
yeah, and I'm not. I don't know, man. Like that's the worst part is that dude, it's like you said it yourself. It's a world everybody loves. You could just do no wrong if you just try. And I
Yeah,
think The Mandalorian is proof of that. Like they tried. Even if it's not like speaking to me or speaking to you in that way, like it got renewed for a second season. People say they like it. It's like The Witcher, man. The first season of The Witcher, I get it, dude. Its tomato meter probably doesn't need to be all that high. Like it's not all that like high quality necessarily, but it's a great start, and you can tell they really tried.
yep.
And I'm like, that's enough for me to be optimistic for like the future and for improvement. And that's the way a lot of the shows that I really like have gone. Like Castlevania season one was okay. Season two was great. It's like
How was
I
season
like
three though?
I don't season three is just okay. I
Okay.
don't I didn't love it, but
Yeah, so like that's for me. Like I modern media in general is so iffy nowadays. It's like I hate being hopeful for anything. And here I
yeah,
am
true.
with Final Fantasy VII being like, yeah, it's gonna be great. And
Yeah,
I had that feeling I had at the end of Force Awakens when I first watched it, where like the promise of something new in this universe I love makes me super excited for the next iteration. And they could fuck it up entirely. Like I am
yeah,
not gonna say they're not going to do that. They could just
yeah.
absolutely wreck the entire thing in a blaze of just tragic
It's
glory.
theirs to lose,
Yeah,
man.
yeah.
It's theirs to lose,
And
dude.
like, but like I for first time in a while, I would just want to have the hope that maybe they won't.
Yeah, that's fair.
That like maybe I just would have stopped being jaded about literally
Yeah,
everything. Like maybe my favorite game of all time being remade like this has the chance of being refreshed and remade into something that like I will remember again for a long time. That would help
yeah,
like do anything like that. And that's like for me where I'm coming from, where I choose to see everything they did as a celebration of the original, but also an acknowledgement that going forward things might not always be the same as the original. And again,
yeah.
if they keep the quality they had in this game going forward with everything else, I have nothing to worry about.
Mm,
If they
right.
fuck it up, I'm just gonna be sad, like plain and simple.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I always had the original game to go back to, and I feel like that's also an interesting thing we can discuss later in like a podcast where it's like, do things like this render the original work like pointless? Like,
Yeah.
yeah, like
Like, can you go back and like is it the
like
same?
yeah, because like the way they're setting this up to be is that it's almost like a sequel, but it's not a sequel, but not a sequel. If that makes any sense. Like
Mm,
it's like the original events of the game you know and love have happened,
yeah.
and this is like perhaps an alternative world where it breaks away from that set fate of what's happening,
Mm,
and things are changing as a result, and some may like it, some may not. And they've been hinting at this for like since the launch, like from since the announcement trailer, where like I think the line is like the reunion to come may bring joy, may bring fear. Well, let's just embrace the fact that it is, or something like
mm,
that. And again, like for me, like just 5 hours into the game, I already knew like it's probably going to veer off into a different direction. But what they were doing at that point with everything at that then, I just wasn't worried about it. And like, yeah, I know the final boss feels very Kingdom Hearts, down to the camera work and how like sequence of events have happened. I love Kingdom Hearts, so I just ate it up. But I know how some people will be put off by it.
yeah.
But yeah, so like for me, like I enjoyed the ending. I enjoyed the whole game. Like I need to be hard mode. I'm probably gonna play hard mode for a while and just enjoy the combat some more in a more difficult context. Because
Yeah, that sounds
the
good.
game was challenging, but not like it was just challenging. It wasn't hard for me. It was just challenging, which I enjoy.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and yeah. So yeah, I could probably go more in detail about the ending later, but like again, like I like the ending.
Yeah, no, I
Yeah,
got you, dude.
yeah. Some people might not like it, and they are entirely reasonable do not like it because Square Enix doesn't have a great track record with video games
Mm,
right now, in the modern era.
yeah.
Japan as a whole is on the rise again, though, so you never know. Maybe they're just coming back.
Dragon's Dogma 2.
Oh,
That dude.
oh my God, that could be
That could
it.
be it. I'm just saying, man. The RE engine mixed with Dragon's Dogma, mixed with like whatever
Bigger world.
Capcom is cooking
Yeah,
in their narrative. I mean, but that like they're making DMC, they're making Resident Evil.
Monster
Like,
Hunter.
oh
Yep.
God, shut up, shut up.
Oh man,
Come on, dude.
they gotta pull it out. Could you
Come
imagine
on,
that
Capcom.
that's what they were gonna announce at E3, and then we never know now because
Yo,
E3 and the digital E3 was canceled. It's like,
yo.
oof.
Okay, so here's my lineup. You ready? You ready? You want my life to be absolutely, utterly motherfucking complete. Okay. Here's E3 lineup for Matty B. We're talking the big enchilada. Obviously, is gonna because I'm a slut for some FromSoft. Um,
Oh, they're doing
Total War
yeah.
Warhammer 3 is expected to be announced at some point, probably in the next, if not this E3, maybe the next one, because they still have to make that. They're making a Greek, historical one, like a what do you call it?
Total War.
The
Or-
Peloponnesian War. Yeah, so like Spartans or no, actually no, I think it's actually ancient Greece, so like the Iliad type shit.
Oh, that's cool. I think you cut out. Dang nabbit. Well, oh no. Are you back?
Are you there?
Yep, I'm back. All right. What happened?
Oh, I don't know. Sorry, man.
It's all good. Wait, you give me your dream lineup. It was Elden Ring, Total War 3.
No, what was the third one though? I'm kind of forgetting at
You were
this
talking
point.
about how like they were doing.
Oh yeah, Dragon's Dogma 2. Yeah,
Yep,
it's like
yep.
if they announced Dragon's Dogma 2. Oh, and then I'm kind of like I'm really hopeful for Ghost of Tsushima because I really love Sucker Punch. Like huge Infamous 2 fan. But I don't know. From what I've seen of Ghost of Tsushima, I'm not like I'm cautiously optimistic. Like I don't
I
know.
I don't want it to be another Red Dead situation where it's a game that's like animation heavy dependent and everything like that. Like,
Yeah.
but hey,
I
you're a
get
samurai. It's like
yeah, it's something about it reminds me of it reminds me of Days Gone, just and I don't know, it's just kind of got that same like the samey Sony feel, like that just
well, yeah, we're
uh
a lot of first party Sony games are
yeah,
going the way of
like
Ubisoft, where they all look the same.
yeah, what's it called? What's the Horizon Zero Dawn? That's what it looks like too a little bit,
Yeah,
just kind of you can tell they're stealing assets, but
yeah,
I just yeah, I don't know, like I'm cautiously optimistic like I said. They haven't really shown any real solid gameplay on that game yet. So
yeah. I see sword
we'll see.
duels, and I'm like, Sekiro already came out, so
Yeah, that
I'm
and
like,
that's really the it's like, dude, do you really think you're gonna be able to, you know? But
you're keep up freaking.
but if it's the middle ground, dude, if it's a game where it feels almost like the middle ground between Sekiro and like The Witcher, where it's like an open world Sekiro, like we were talking about, I'd be down for that. But I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah, it's Sucker Punch. I just want to. I want them to do better after Infamous Second Son,
Yeah. Yeah,
because
it was a launch PS4 game and they've had this whole console generation to work on this game.
yeah.
Like
But I
uh
don't know. Even like the story in that game was bleh.
weak, yeah.
Yeah. I remember playing
Yeah.
the Evil playthrough, and it wasn't nearly as compelling as the
Oh no,
Evil
so
playthrough
shallow
in
and
two.
stupid. Yeah, it's like the evil playthrough in two was amazing. It
Was
was so
you
good.
were Magneto?
You were God, man. You had to kill your own best friend at the end, and it was like the best part of two. Spoiler alert if you haven't played it, but like they do the big switcheroo where the person who was always associated with the evil missions
Becomes your
ends up
yeah.
being on the side of the good mission at the very end, and vice versa. So like it's the last big like it's kind of like a eugenics question almost for like the X-Men.
Yep.
And like the formerly good girl votes to save her own skin and you're like, "Oh, well hot damn." And so if you end up going with her and voting to save your own skin, you're smothering your best friend and symbolically the world because you're sacrificing them so that all the X-Men
I
can
love the
survive.
choice of that game though, where like you're either sacrificing the majority of people or the minority of people.
Yeah, right.
It's like
Yeah.
both of these are bad in actuality. Like both of
Yeah.
these suck, but you got to make
Well,
a
and
choice.
I selfishly still think, I think a really good narrative play would have been that because the the bridge between the first game and the second game, the canon ending, because you can have an evil ending in the first game too. So
Yeah,
the canon ending is the good ending from the first game.
but
But
the you wanted the
the
canon ending
problem
to be
is,
the bad ending from the
yeah, it would have to be because in Infamous 2, if you don't choose the evil ending, you die, right? So
yeah.
like the good ending, literally Cole dies at the end, which I thought was like fucking staggering. I was like, really? Like you killed, you know? But yeah,
Well,
so the evil,
then it does that thing where lightning strikes the
yeah,
boat, and you're like,
yeah,
"Is he alive?"
yeah. But I also think like, dude, I don't think they should. I like the idea, just the narrative balance of saying like, okay, so the bridge between the first game and the second game, the canon ending is the good ending. But if you had made the bridge between the second and the third game, the canon ending is the evil ending, that would be just such a really awesome hotbed for like conflict and
It'd be
it'd
a
be a good
great
way to
world to
kill
jump
off.
into, and
Yeah,
Cole would make a super compelling villain. Like,
exactly. And you could pass the torch, and that would have made Second Son make a whole lot more sense if Cole was the bad guy,
yeah,
if you wanted to keep that storyline or something like that.
yeah.
Anyway, I don't know.
If you
I'm
end up
just
following Cole rather than fighting him, kind of thing, yeah, that'd be actually really, yeah, that'd be super interesting. And
yeah.
again, another dynamic that you can explore. Instead, we got angry guy that punches the city, and also the conduit's still around, so the whole thing Cole did in the second game was pointless.
It was a waste of time.
Yeah. Yeah, so
Yep.
that's like, what the fuck?
Awesome. Great.
Yeah, and I don't know, like, I just wish that game was better. We spent all night trying to get that evil ending too.
On Infamous Second Son.
Yeah, we spent all night playing that game. Remember?
I just, dude, I was pretty bummed. Like when the credits rolled, it was like Halo 3. I was like, that was it. Like
That was the ending.
that was the PS4 Infamous game. Like,
Yeah,
come on, man. Infamous 2 is better than that.
yeah. Infamous Two had the way more. I feel like way more things happened in Infamous Two, especially when you're just going from point A to point B. Like
Yeah,
the
like
amount of events that you just run into. Like, I still remember. It's like my Dragon's Dogma with the Chimera in the woods moment where I'm
yep.
running across town to get to this point, and all of a sudden I hear a commotion up in the distance. I'm
Hmm.
like, cool, what's happening? And then like I go over there, and there's a giant monster attacking the town.
Yep.
Like no warning whatsoever. I'm like, wow, whoa, like
Dude,
what's
it's
happening
just
here?
yeah, man. It's just such a like it's a sprawling city, really fun to explore, like lots of random side quests to stumble into, lots of random enemies to fight, if you feel like it,
Cole's
which I think
powers
is like,
are way more interesting than the what was it,
oh,
Desmond?
oh,
Yeah.
dude, here's a controversial thing I'm about to say, and I
What?
don't give a fuck. I think, I think, a thousand times over, as good as Spider-Man PS4 was by Insomniac, they should have given Spider-Man 2 Sucker Punch. I think coming like I cannot believe they they wouldn't pursue Sucker Punch having made such a great uh like superhero game after Infamous 2. Like could you imagine like hot off the coals of Infamous 2, they made a Spider-Man PlayStation game.
Oh
I think
man.
they would have made a better one than Insomniac. Not that Insomniac's wasn't great, and it was pretty good like but
Story
I
wise, it
think
was
it
great.
was
I like it. Yeah.
what's up?
Story wise, Insomniacs is really awesome.
Yeah, no, it was
And the
great,
swinging and the swinging.
but at the same time, like I could boot up Infamous 2 and just play it, right?
Yep.
I don't ever do that with Spider-Man PS4. Like
True.
I thought I was gonna go right into a new game plus of that game. I couldn't even be possessed because it just didn't do it. And it's just like what a waste of like an open world Spider-Man adventure. It's like or I don't know. I don't know.
Well, it's
I
like
wish
it
there was
had
more, I
it,
guess.
it had all the random events and all that stuff, but
But
they
they were
were
so samey, dude.
they were samey, and also they were limited because once you did
Yeah.
a certain amount in the zone, that zone's cleared, and then nothing else happened.
Yeah, dude. It's just like okay. So it's a perfect example of what you were saying earlier. It's like it's a really polished, fresh, beautiful looking last gen game.
Yep.
Like there's nothing that Spider-Man game did that earned a spot as like, oh, that's next
Yeah.
gen. Like
Arkham
other than
City,
just being
Arkham City
beautiful.
did the same thing. Yeah, you
Yeah,
can say it.
right. It's like so. Yeah, exactly. Like you made a slightly different, and Arkham City was honestly better. Let's be honest. Like
Yeah.
you know, Spider-Man when he's like inside the buildings, it just feels wonky and weird, and he jumps too high, and he's like, this
And
is
then like
anyway.
you spend like half the time playing as Spider Man, and the other half you're either playing Peter Parker, Mary Jane,
Yeah,
or
like
Miles.
why would we want to do that? Like why would this just not be a cutscene? Like it'd give you that much more time to work on the outside gameplay because making the whole section where you have to play as Peter Parker and just go around and read god awful fucking notes and shit, who cares? Like,
Like
I don't know.
if
I'm
I
just
have to do another
ranting.
stealth section with MJ, I swear
I swear to God, dude. I swear to God.
like yes,
That's what I mean.
I'm a reporter. I'm going to sneak into this top secret military base. It's like that makes no
What?
sense. How are you
What?
evading them?
Right. Like, I just. Ugh. Oh God.
Yeah.
I
No,
just not
don't get me
compelling.
wrong,
Not
people listening. I enjoyed the game and the story, but some of that shit made no sense.
like well in it made sense the one time but it's like all these cinematic moments that they try to jam into games or these like what do you call them quick time events like
Yep.
i
Which
I
you can
can't
also
believe they
just
got a pass on all the quick time events
you can
because like
also we could
that's a
you
meme.
you can turn them off, and just watch the cutscene happen.
Can you really?
Yeah.
Oh, I should have done that because that's dude. Because that's what I mean, man. What am I, a fucking dancing monkey? Oh, hit triangle as fast as you can. Fuck you. Like that's not what this is about. Like I'm not a child. This is we can grow up a little bit.
Yeah.
I thought I was really hoping that QuickTime events would be dead. That we could just put that nonsense behind us because it's just like it's basically just saying tap this button while you watch TV. Like fuck that.
Is,
That's not my jam.
that's for real.
It's a video game, make it a video game.
Isn't Sekiro like a quick time event though, with your parrying and everything like that? No, just joking.
First of all, how dare you?
Yeah, I know.
Second, no, but yeah, no, I just, oh my god, man, like when I saw the QuickTime events that they were, and it was in Spider-Man, the other Spider-Man games for a long time. Spider-Man 2 was famous for having QuickTime events. I think there's a meme about when because he dies so many like brutal ways. In
Oh, you end up failing, and then the lady's like, "We're gonna die," and then there's an
yeah,
explosion. Like that.
just like falls flat, splats on his face, and burns a lot.
It's amazing.
Yeah, but like, dude, come on, man. We have to enlighten ourselves, and that it just does. It's not a compelling way to interact. I don't feel that love.
I'm just worried Sucker Punch is gonna go the way of we used to make fantastical games, and now we're making realistic games like Naughty Dog. Don't get me wrong. Don't get me
Don't
wrong.
do this to me.
I enjoy Naughty Dog games, but
Oh,
boy, oh
man.
boy, do I want another Jack and Daxter.
Dude, that's what I mean. Like you said it yourself. Like Last of Us is a great narrative experience, and same as Uncharted. Uncharted is a great narrative experience, and it feels pretty tight most of the time. But at the end of the day, it's not playing varsity ball. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Jack 2 was actually a really innovative game and doesn't get enough credit. GTA 3 came out and completely changed the landscape for like what a PS2 game could be. There's like, hey, open world, whole city to explore. You know, they like I saw this interview with the designers, and they were like, yeah, well, we just really wanted to. We saw that and were really inspired, and they wanted to just be able to do that with the technology of the PS2, but they weren't really sure how to wrap it around the Jack and Daxter. But they figured out a way, and they were like, hey, well, we kind of grew up in the time that it took us to make Jack and Daxter and Jack 2. Why don't we let Jack grow up too? We'll kind of pivot, and also they're super inspired by Final Fantasy VII. Didn't know if you knew that,
Really?
but all of Haven
No.
City, dude, look at it. It
I
is
I can
Final Fantasy VII
I can
as
feel.
fuck.
I'm feeling it. Yeah.
Yeah, right. So like, so they're super inspired by that, and they're like, no, fuck it, let's just pivot, let's just try it. Like, who cares? And it's like and Jack 2 was the best. I thought I don't know if that's like fair, but it was a really awesome GTA style game. It was a little simpler, outside of like GTA and more in the Jack and Daxter in the Jack vein. But like, think about all the different things that it stole from. Tony Hawk, it has the hoverboard that you can literally just whip out wherever you are, grind on almost anything you can see, like any of the geometry, and it totally works. You have all these different guns that have like their particular functions, and somehow you work in the shooting mechanic in a way that is competent, that works, and isn't all that. It's like a little clumsy, but it actually works really well. Um, the platforming I think is spot on. It's the way they incorporate platforming into the mechanics of the individual levels, like climbing the tower and like going to the power station and shit like that. It's like really well paced, and it doesn't feel too horizontal or too vertical. It feels like a really excellent balance of both.
It
The
rewards
storyline,
skill as well.
it's a really well written game. What's up?
It rewards skill, like the platform
Yeah.
rewards
Oh yeah.
skill.
Oh, the racing. Oh my God, the fucking literally the racing inspired a whole separate game made just dedicated to a racing game of the version that came
Which is
out. Well, I
actually
guess it was
really
like the
good
Jack
too.
3 version, but yeah, actually really
Yeah.
good.
Yep.
Like it just had so much shit, dude. It had you can like, have the top score in the skate park when you get the hoverboard. Like it was a huge, big, fun game that had so much shit in it. I will defend that game to its last, and it deserves so much more credit.
Well, it's like I think it does sound like a jaded old man. Like they don't make them like they used to. Like
Yeah, yeah, right.
PS2 games were in the scale
Bomb.
on the scale of quality, they could be the shittiest thing you've ever played,
Yeah,
but
the
they could
mummy.
also they could
Yeah.
also be the greatest thing you've ever experienced in your life. And I miss that variation so much.
Yeah, that's
because
fair.
nowadays games are so safe and so stale that like I almost want to play a terrible game, like
Oh yeah, man.
just to
No, but
feel
that's
something
why I'm playing
different.
Overgrowth, man. It feels like an old game that's new. You know,
Yeah,
it feels like such a finely polished old game, and I'm like, that's what I need right now because I just don't feel the.
and I
You know, I feel
like
kind of like a base layer of polish on games, but it doesn't like.
and I got that with the Final Fantasy VII remake a lot too, where like yeah, a lot of the big gameplay systems are like modern game design esque in terms of questing and all that. But
Yeah,
the combat itself was way different, so I enjoyed that. But there's also like little small details of like you're walking in there, you pick up a dart, like you find a dartboard, and you just start playing darts, like,
yeah, right, right, right.
and you're just throwing darts. I'm like, cool, awesome. And then you have a squat mini game, which is hilarious. And then there's even like there's a rhythm game that just shows up in the middle of like the game when it pops up, and actually really fun. I had fun playing it. Maybe some people didn't, but that was really cool. And then you know they they had a coliseum in the game, which is perfect. I love coliseums. Love them.
Always.
Love arenas. And then yeah, like again, there were things in that game that changed it up enough that I always felt like again it feels more like an older like PS2 era game given the revamp and put into a next gen to make it feel next gen. Like,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
could you only imagine if Jack 2, like that kind of game was made with today's technology?
That's what I want Naughty Dog to fucking do, man. Stop making Oscar winners. You know, I don't. You don't need any more BAFTAs. I want you to compete in the big boys table. Like CD Project Red is the last bastion of like of that for me, in terms of people who are swinging for that fence.
Oh my god,
I'm hoping Cyberpunk is like
I'm like
that, but
I'm smoking screening myself so hard in Cyberpunk that
yeah,
like again maybe it'll do the thing like Final Fantasy 7 where like I'll just realize it's coming out the day before it comes out, because like yeah like that game if they do it the way they say they're going to do it could be just it could be your game, dude. It could be the game you're just lost in for a while because of all the different gameplay options.
you know like, and I've always wanted to write in that kind of genre, but I've always been intimidated by it because it's so sci-fi heavy, and like I don't, you know, that's not the thing that I get off to. Like I don't get my jollies off to like sci-fi ideas. You know, oh the nano machines and stuff. It's like I'm much more of a philosophy guy who just has
Well, I think the
the
neat thing about cyberpunk is that the genre itself lends itself to a more philosophical and
yeah,
like
right, which is
political
why I'm so attracted
viewpoint.
to it.
So yeah,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
like
and so. But yeah, so hopefully, what I'm really hoping for is that Cyberpunk just stokes that inspiration real hard to where I
yeah,
just can't deny it. You know, and I just have to write a
yeah,
Cyberpunk book because
and,
it's going to be just chock full of it. You
yeah.
know, it's just going to be
The Final Fantasy 7 remake is a
dopish.
well, the Final Fantasy 7 like Final Fantasy 7 has always been. I want to say cyberpunk, but it's actually more diesel punk.
Yeah, no,
Where
that's a good
it's
point.
like because even though like in remake there's a lot of technology in there that is very cyberpunk esque. Majority of it feels more like diesel punk,
Yeah, no,
like
that's a good way to put
and like I enjoy just any punk genre. Maybe not steampunk doesn't really do it for me. But literally anything else from the punk genre, I just enjoy like being in because
it. Yeah,
they're always unique second settings no matter what.
oh for sure, dude.
Yeah, as opposed to like high
Yeah,
fantasy, like you see that castle, it's a castle.
yeah,
It's like oh, okay,
yeah.
cool.
I don't know. I'm kind of I'm really out of gas on like a lot of sci-fi stuff recently, and I really want a new like fantasy game to sink my teeth into. Like
See,
there hasn't been
I'm
a
like
Elder Scrolls,
I'm the
you know,
opposite.
besides the
Yeah,
what's up?
I'm
Oh,
the
you need a
opposite.
sci-fi game.
Yeah, I need a new
You see?
sci-fi game to freaking bring it out of me. Like
Yeah, that's
I
fair.
am fantasy. No, like I'm good for right now fantasy, but
Yeah,
good
that's
sci-fi
fair.
game. I am chomping at the bit for one.
Oh, see, I want Zelda news. I want Dragon's Dogma. I want Elden Ring. Like, you know, I don't know why I'm on such a fancy kick, but at the same time, I'm hoping Cyberpunk like drags me back in though, because you know how it is. Like that shit, you know, once it gets its hooks in you, you're just like stuck. And
Yeah. As long as the world's really, I just hope the world is as open as they say it is. That's my main hope.
yeah, yeah, like I've seen the gameplay demos, and it's not. It doesn't look. I wish it could be as open and like vast as like GTA, you know. But I don't think it could ever be like that. And in the same way that The Witcher's not really like that, you know, it's still very limited in your, a lot of the
in
stuff.
what buildings you can go into and all that kind of
Yeah,
stuff.
who you
Yeah.
can kill even, it's not like you can just draw your sword and start hacking away at people. It's not like there's physics inherently
But
in
if
every
it
body, like
but
so.
if it did though, that's
Yeah,
like
right. And
yeah.
that's what I hope for. I hope it's like, would it be sick if it's just like, oh, by the way, we're 3 times bigger than The Witcher, and you're like, what?
Like
But I don't think
it
that's gonna
and
happen.
there's like so much like I would actually enjoy. And I think Deus Ex does this a lot. The newer ones, Mankind Divided, and all that stuff.
Yeah,
I would enjoy an open world game that's just a city. Like I know GTA has done that already, but like in like this fantastical context
yeah,
of
no, for sure.
especially in a cyberpunk city where like, there's a ton of verticality to the construction.
Mm.
So it's a kind of like it's a smaller, wide world, but the layers of like depth,
The
literal,
verticality, yeah,
yeah,
right.
vertical depth make it much more interesting to explore.
Well, that's what they're saying that Cyberpunk's supposed to be, is what I understand. Is like a lot of the buildings are much more, vertical, and so there's shit on every floor, and like, you know, that's kind of like the theme that they're going for. Kind of like a Judge Dredd Mega Block kind
Well,
of
if they have a mission that's just like a
situation.
if that's just like a Judge Dredd Mega Block, I would fucking.
I think I'm guessing that's gonna be like most of the missions. I'm sure that was like I'm sure they watched Dread and they were like, dude, dude, get in here.
They watch the raid, then they watch Dread, which is
Yeah,
essentially
right.
the raid with
Exactly.
Judge Dredd.
Yep. Yeah. Right.
Yeah, but like no, like, I would eat it up. I'm like, oh, like
Yeah, I
I
just
don't know.
wish they didn't delay it, dude. It would have been out by now, or maybe in May.
True.
I guess
I'd
realistically.
rather they delay it and actually release a game that's functional and complete, as opposed to releasing a game that's not functional and not complete.
Well, like I would normally agree with you, but considering we're at the 6 month window, and if it's not fixed, even when they do release it right now, it will be. If you told me like, hey, by the way, like I'll give you early access to the game, but it'll have a lot of bugs. We'll be working through those, and hopefully in 6 months it'll be all cleaned up perfect. And I'm like, I trust you. Give me the game.
Yeah, just give me the
Like,
okay. I'm telling you,
yeah,
dude, though, I'm gonna play the game normally, and then I'm gonna play it with no cybernetic enhancements whatsoever.
you're
And
not gonna do any cyber.
no, well, I mean, the first time I play through, yeah, I'm gonna do cyber, just play it normally. But then in the second playthrough, nothing,
I don't
just
know. Why don't you just do it the first time and just see what
full meat
happens?
pack. Well, mainly because like I want to experience the game as it was intended to be played.
Gotcha. Yeah.
Yeah,
So you don't
and,
want to be like,
yeah, and then the second time, like okay, like, now I don't have the fancy gun arm as before. I just have this pistol.
yeah. I'm
Okay.
not like I am kind of concerned because it is such a gamble in games like that where it's like you can have sometimes. Sekiro really did this to me the first time, which I think is why I so bounce so hard on it. Is like it doesn't tell you some of the things that are like ease of access kind of stuff that you with the experience know is worthwhile. But like for instance, you have to spend your experience on these skill points, and literally 9 out of 10 of them are worthless. Like it's your special move, your LB and RB at the same time. Like Ichimonji is really the only one you really need. You could replace that with a couple others that are functionally similar, but otherwise, like spending any other amount of skill points on that is a waste compared to spending them on. There's you get a thing later where you can spend 5 skill points at a time and upgrade your attack power, which obviously is huge in a game that's notoriously as difficult as
Yeah.
Sekiro. So, but like they don't tell you that shit. So I killed the carp by accident, didn't get to upgrade my attack power, spent all my skill points on shit that was worthless because I was playing the game blind. And I was like, wow, I've never been so burned playing the game blind as in Sekiro. Like, so I'm actually a little bit cautious and anxious about that going into any other game. So I'm gonna, you know,
No, that's fair. Yeah, like for Cyberpunk, I'm gonna go in completely blind and just play it how I think it is. And I think
well,
it would be a super interesting dynamic considering how much more money my character will have not buying cybernetics. That like
yeah, I guess so.
maybe I won't have cybernetics, but my fucking gear is gonna be on point. Like,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
oh yeah, okay, you have a gun firearm. I have this gun that can blow 4 holes in your chest in like a microsecond.
Yeah.
So maybe it could be that dynamic or anything like that. But also, when I get hit by a bullet, I might just die instantly.
Yeah, dude, I'm gonna be excited to see what the builds, the build variety is gonna
Yeah.
be,
Like
and what people's recommendations are. But
yeah, I would love to just play like yeah, because again, like that they play true to the RPG because it's based off a tabletop RPG. They had the depth of a tabletop RPG in that game.
yeah,
I will love it, but
yeah, for sure, dude.
again, like it's all about when they release it and all that
Yeah,
stuff.
absolutely, man.
But hey, like Final Fantasy VII was delayed for 1 month,
Yeah,
and it came out great. So maybe the six
yeah,
months they took are good. Who knows?
hopefully.
All right.
Anyway, dude, want to wrap this thing up? I gotta hit the
Oh,
sack pretty soon. Dude.
I do. Yes. Oh my God, it's 2:41 where I'm at.
Yeah,
All right. So that was it for today's Rocket On Productions podcast. I hope everyone could follow our tirades, but have a good day, everybody.
yeah. Take care.